Hi, welcome to Tea with Dymphna. We are two licensed psychotherapists.
And today we have 6 tips for you to reduce anxiety.
So the first tip that I have is basically stop avoiding the things that you're afraid of. Just recognizing that avoidance is the main mechanism for anxiety. So when you find that you're afraid of something, if it's reasonable, I'm not talking about like an unreasonable thing, like, you know, getting into a car accident, but if it's a reasonable thing that you really should be able to do, like going to the grocery store or going to a party where there's going to be people there and maybe you have social anxiety, when you begin to scale back your life and stop doing functional things, you are aiding the mechanism of anxiety, which is avoidance. So that's my first tip, is just stop avoiding, do hard things. And one of the studies that I was reading recently, it was talking about how basically doing hard things builds inner resilience, and it increases your threshold for doing difficult things, which actually helps your body understand what to be actually afraid of and what not to be. So an example of this in my life is, like, I like rock climbing. I do rock climbing. That's something to actually be afraid of when you're 50 feet off the ground. And so, this teaches your body, like, oh, so when I'm just stressed in traffic, or when I'm stressed about like being 5 minutes late, or whatever the thing is, it's like your body you can begin to better understand, like, this is not necessarily something that I need to be stressed out about.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. I wonder if one question that our audience might have would be, how do I distinguish between something I should be worried about and something that I need to stop avoiding? You kind of already said something about that when you said if the anxiety is interfering with like your daily functioning, like going to the grocery store, driving to work, cooking, all those things. But do you have anything to add to that and how to differentiate that?
Yes. People often come in to therapy when they're beginning to notice that their overall sense of well-being is diminished. So when a behavior stops being functional is when you notice that you're being anxious. I'll give you an example. A time when having some OCD tendencies is effective and helpful might be if you're handling a gun. I think the first rule of gun safety, the first universal rule of gun safety, is to treat every single gun as if it's loaded. And I know that that's like a hot button issue or whatever, but my point is that when you're handling a gun, you have to be absolutely meticulous about doing it. Or like when I go rock climbing, we always check to make sure that all of the safety features that are like present every single time you climb a route, no matter if you've climbed 20 in that day, every single time you check. So there are times when being conscious of something and like almost anxious about it, I don't mean that quite literally, but just concerned or like hyper aware of it, is effective. It's when it becomes an ineffective trait that then we call it anxiety.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, that's my first tip. What about you?
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. So one thing that I like to tell patients who struggle with anxiety is to work on calming down their inner nervous system. So our mind and our body are reciprocal, which means that if your body's feeling anxious, your brain receives the signal, oh, there must be something to be afraid of. And so then your mind might even start producing anxious thoughts or might scan the environment. What could I be anxious about? So one way to address that is to calm down your physical body. And there's different ways to do that, of course. One really great way and very effective way that's been proven to be effective to reduce anxiety is to move your body, is to do some kind of, and it doesn't even have to be strenuous exercise. It could be doing 10 jumping jacks, running around the block. That has a very stress relieving effect. And the other thing it does is that it almost tricks our brain into thinking, oh, I fought or I fled, right? The fight or flight is a very innate human response to a threat. If your mind is feeling anxious, even though there's not a real threat, you might still get that fight or flight response. So if you move your body, it's almost like you satisfy that desire for like, okay, I fought or I fled. If you move your body, so your brain can calm that down a little bit, that inner fight or flight. And then the other one to calm the inner nervous system is to do a simple breathing exercise. And the one that I like, there's different types, but the one that I like to teach my patients is you slow down your breathing And when you breathe in, your belly expands. And when you breathe out, your belly contracts. And this has two effects. Number one, you are redirecting your thoughts away from whatever you're anxious about to your breathing, because it takes a bit of concentration. And so at the very least, you're interrupting those anxious thoughts. And the other thing it does, it actually, this kind of breathing into your belly, it actually sends a physiological signal to the brain that says, I am safe. When we breathe this way, it's typically when we're in a very calm state, so when we're sleeping or very relaxed. And you might notice when you're anxious that your breathing goes up here to your chest. And when we bring it down to the belly, we are telling our brains, I am safe. We're okay. And so that will calm down that inner alarm system as well. So that's my second tip.
Great. Beautiful. So my third tip is journaling. Journaling is great because oftentimes when you're feeling really anxious, you're dysregulated, you're not working in your prefrontal cortex. Simply taking your hand to write engages your prefrontal cortex. You engage executive functioning, and this automatically converts, like reverts energy to your prefrontal cortex so that you're not working in your hindbrain anymore. It regulates you as well. Because you're using executive functioning, this is the part of your brain that you use for planning or, being creative and thinking out new solutions. So when we're working in our hindbrain, all the solutions that we would normally have on a day-to-day basis when we're just functioning normally are lost to us. We can only do planned routes. This is, for example, why when you're in a fire, this is why we plan to get out of our house ahead of time and we practice getting out, because when you're in crisis, you can only do planned routes. And if you haven't planned to get out of your house, this is a PSA, know how to get out of your house in a fire.
Yeah.
But my point is that when your prefrontal cortex is engaged, now you can use creative solutions that would have been lost to you if you were only working in your hindbrain. So all that to say, just journaling gives you the ability to be creative as well, to plan a new route for whatever it is that you're struggling with or going through.
Wow, what a great tip. Yeah, thanks, Lauren. So tip number 4 that I have for you kind of piggybacks on when I was talking about how the mind and the body are reciprocal. So we can either, like I said before, work on calming the inner nervous system, our body, to calm our brain, but we can also work on what's going on in our brains to calm down the body, which will then again in turn make you feel less anxious overall. And the way we can do that, we actually cannot push away thoughts. So it's not going to be very effective for you to just try to push away an anxious thought, but we can replace it. So if you have an anxious thought, the amygdala, which is the part of the brain that's responsible for all the fight or flight and the pit in the stomach and making you feel all anxious, the amygdala gets activated, right? Because it sees, oh, my person is having this thought, there must be a threat, and then it becomes activated. So if you replace that anxious thought with something positive or just anything else, right? It could be that you say a prayer or that you think of the lyric to a song, or the positive. You could even say things like, I am safe. I am okay. Everything will be okay, right? Because if your amygdala sees that, right, there's no reason for the amygdala to be afraid of those thoughts. And then the amygdala will start to unwind down. One thing that I love to do is to replace those anxious thoughts with Bible verses that actually directly address anxiety. And Jesus really talks quite frequently about do not be afraid, do not be anxious. And so if you could memorize one of those passages, and anytime you are feeling anxious or you have an anxious thought, you just recite that Bible passage over and over again. And you might have to say it a couple of times because those anxious thoughts are on automatic loop in your head, right? You don't only have one anxious thought and then that's it, right? Typically when we have an anxious thought, we think it over and over again. So the idea would be to take that Bible passage and to say it over and over again. There's a couple ones that I love to recommend. They're all great. One that I really like to recommend to people is Philippians 4:6-7. And it goes like this: do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. I love this passage because it's very it's not wishy-washy. It says, do not be anxious about anything, right? It doesn't say, well, about this, you can be anxious. It says like, do not be anxious. Like, sure, like be concerned, be aware, but like, do not be anxious. And in every situation, like go to prayer, and with petition, like bring whatever you're concerned about to God, and then God's peace will come to you. So I think there's so much good stuff in this passage. So that can be a really good one if you want to memorize it and like recite it to yourself. Another really good one is Isaiah 41:10, which is, so do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. So those are just 2 passages. There's lots more. But yeah, that would be my tip number 4, to replace anxious thoughts.
Wonderful. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
So the 5th tip that I have is progressive muscle relaxation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a somatic exercise, much like a number of the ones that you've mentioned. It does very similar. It's a physiological hack, basically. You can find these on YouTube. That's how I do them. And maybe at some point I'll make a progressive muscle relaxation just track and put it up as like a short.
Oh, that'd be great.
But the idea is that you begin to go through each muscle group on your body, and often it's guided, which is just calming in and of itself. When you have a person with like a nice calming voice and then you feel guided, there's just something about like being able to enter into that I think is helpful for people, but you can do it by yourself as well. So you begin with like, oftentimes they'll say like to put your feet on the ground and feel the soles of your feet. And then they take you through beginning with your toes all the way up through your legs, like your feet, your legs, your quads and hamstrings, your lower back, your abdomen, all the way up through your chest and then to your jaw and forehead. So they're going through your entire body. And the point of this is to engage each muscle group and tense them and then relax them. You tense them, you hold them for like 6 seconds, and then you relax it. And the point of this is that, like, first of all, you're showing your body that any place where you're holding tension to release that tension. As well, you're focusing on pinpointing these muscle groups, which re-engages your prefrontal cortex. It takes executive functioning to do so. And this just moves you out of your amygdala. So it's
amazing how sometimes when we actually start focusing on those, that's when we realize where we've been tensing.
Yes.
Right? Like we think, oh, I'm relaxed. But then it comes to the face and we're like, oh, like I've been like clenching my jaw. And it's like, you don't realize, and then you relax it. And that really brings you more into that state of like, okay, I can be calm.
Yeah. Speaking of the jaw, I think that this is the number one. If you could only focus on one muscle group, I've heard that if you relax your jaw, you're actually relaxing every muscle in your body. I don't know how accurate that is, but I have heard that over the years from a number of sources. So if you actively focus on relaxing your jaw, I've known that to be effective for me. So.
Yeah. Yes. I found it sometimes when I'm trying to sleep and thoughts are keeping me awake, and I focus on my face, it's often my face is tense, and you can't fall asleep if your face is tense. No. It's just, it'll like keep you up. So yes, like maybe the first thing you can do is like check in with your jaw and your face and like actively relax that.
Yeah.
That's great. So my next tip is probably one of my favorite ones. It's about gratitude.
Definitely.
The interesting thing about gratitude, and I love how God has designed our brains this way, is that the neural pathway that our brain uses for anxiety is the same exact one it uses for gratitude. So basically, when you think of things that you're grateful for, you're physically plugging up that anxiety pathway, so your brain is physically unable to send you anxious thoughts and to feel anxious. I think that's just amazing. And so what you could do is you could start by maybe trying to list 3 things that you're grateful for. And if you're in a state where you're not feeling great and you're just kind of anxious about life, it might be hard to find 3 things, but think about basic things like I have food on the table, I have friends. Like think of things that, and then after those 3 things, see if you can like find more things. Oftentimes when we get into a state of gratitude, we can start to think more about like more things will pop out at us that we can be grateful for. And so not only are you in the moment interrupting the anxiety, which is why if you're really in a state of anxiety, kind of think of things you're grateful for and like just continue that, because as long as you're doing that, you're like blocking your brain from making you feel anxious. The other thing it does is that with time, your brain is getting trained to focus its attention on things that are going well in your life that you can be grateful for. And so you will start going through your day and your brain will pick up on things, right? That are great, that you can be grateful for. So it's like you're building in this like preventative measure in your brain against anxiety, because we can teach our brains what we want to focus on. Do we want to focus on threats or things that we want to be anxious about? Or do we want to focus on things that are good, that we can be grateful for? And focusing on things that are good, that we can be grateful for, is definitely going to reduce anxiety and improve your mental health overall.
That concludes our 6 tips, but Elizabeth has something else that she wanted to share with us.
Yes. Yeah. So the other day I was reading in a meditation book, and actually this is by Father Mark Toops. And he was talking about anxiety. When I'm feeling anxious, who do I go to? Do I go to myself? Like, do I ruminate on it? Or do I go to God? And he talks about the difference between ruminating and relating. Like, am I relating it to God, meaning I talk to God about the anxiety, I'm surrendering it to him, I'm asking him to give me peace and discernment maybe? Like, is this something I need to think more about, or is this something I need to let go? Do all the tips that we just shared with you. And he really, challenges us to ask yourself, who am I talking to? Maybe I can read this passage. Father Mark Toops just says, in a basic sense, rumination means engaging in conversation with ourselves. When we ruminate, we can constantly loop through fear, attempting to find our solutions. Rumination is different from relating. Relating is when I talk to God about the fear. When relating, I engage with another person, God, and seek his voice regarding fear. Acknowledging our fears and relating them to the Lord are part of the ongoing process of trusting him. Yeah, so he kind of talks about, like, he challenges us. Who are you talking to when you're feeling anxious? Do you go to yourself, which is not going to lead you to peace? Or do you go to God? Do you relate it to God? So that would be my encouragement to you, to really challenge yourself to, like, bring it to God and not, like, ruminating on it. And yeah, this was from the book Rejoice by Father Mark Toops. We hope that these tips were helpful for you. We hope that this can help you decrease anxiety. If there's any other topics you would like us to talk about, feel free to leave a comment down below. And if you think that a friend of yours or family member could benefit from this, go ahead and share it with them so that more people can benefit from these tips and tools.
Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you can get any updates or new videos.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Okay. Oh, you know what? Should we do some thumbnail pics?
Sure. How do we do that?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you want to do the number 6 and I'm staring at you?
Staring?
Which I end up doing a lot when you're talking. And
Which
I'm realizing,
is good. It's a conversation.
Okay.